It's wonderful to be with you today, Your Grace Saidna, Archbishop Bashar Warda. Welcome to another episode of Break the Silence, the podcast series that shines a light on the nature of persecution of Christians around the world today and asks probing questions about the nature of religious freedom, complete with witness testimony, expert analysis, and commentary. Well, I'm John Pontifex from the Catholic charity Aid to the Church in Need UK, and in that charity I work as head of press and public affairs. And as I said at the start, it's really wonderful to be today present with Archbishop Bashar Warda, and he, of course, is well known to us at Aid to the Church in Need as the Chaldean Catholic Archbishop of Erbil in the Kurdish region of northern Iraq. So welcome to Break the Silence today, Archbishop Bashar. It's great to have you with us, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, John. It's always great to talk to you and to all your listeners and viewers and to all the people who are listening and watching, and big word of thanks to you and to to the Church in Need, ACN, and to all our benefactors.
Thank you very much indeed. I've known you for 20 years now, almost, I was thinking, and no day could have been more traumatic for either of us as that day, the 10th of June, when, of course, Daesh, ISIS militants seized Mosul, completed their seizure of Mosul, and from there they began their terrible period of occupation, both of Mosul, and later on the 6th of August, they seized many towns and villages in the very historic and very significant region of Nineveh outside Mosul, an area that we at Aid to the Church in Need know very, very well. So, Archbishop Bashar, you, of course, were in nearby Erbil. You hadn't been bishop for very long at that point. I think you'd been there for just over 3 years as archbishop. And here you were as a young bishop that morning of the 7th of August, 2014, when you no doubt were woken by news of what was happening. Perhaps you were awake that night with the reports coming in. But I just wondered if I could start by asking you very briefly, what were your main memories that day, the 7th of August, a tragic day for the church in Iraq, indeed for other communities too?
Yes, it's been rightly described. It was really a tragic day. I remember we were preparing for the celebration for the first communion in our parish in Erbil, outside Ankawa, and I was with a few, deacons around, just finalizing, because it was also a day when we ended the renovation inside the church. So just to be, I want to make sure that everything is being set properly. When I've received a call saying, Sayyidna, Your Grace, you must come to the Matraniya, to the house immediately. And I remember driving back, we saw the streets of Erbil was empty, almost empty, which is unusual in Iraq, as you've seen it in many occasions, that because usually during the nights streets are crowded. And then when I arrived to St. Joseph Church, I saw hundreds of people just coming in to the main building of the church. They've occupied the whole church and the gardens and the surrounding area. And already another shrine of Mar Elia was opened and filled with these families, Martishmoni. And then I've asked the priest to open all of churches to all of those families who run with nothing, but their clothes, and
Yeah.
they took most of it, most of the important like paperwork and identities, and some of the, I mean, so their jewelry, something like that. And we kept that night receiving people, and also we received a call that there are more people walking, and if there is a way that we send cars and buses to the borders
Hmm.
between Mosul and Erbil in Kurdistan to help some of the elderly people. We had some elderly priests and sisters, and all of them, they tried really hard to make it to the borders. It was really tragic, and we were just, everyone wanted to do something to help those people who fled the violence there, because suddenly, I can't say suddenly, because as you said, from the 10th of June, Mosul was already being invaded by Daesh. So there was some signals coming in a way,
Hmm.
but none of the people thought that the collapse, the security would collapse around that area. And so our people made it quite clear it would be much safer if they would leave, because the conditions would be the same as it was in Mosul. Islam, or paying the al jizya, or facing death, and so are the people left. So yeah, the memories of these first nights and days was really a tragic one. And but I must say, over 26 camps, small and big, were opened within just 3 days. To
26 within three
Well,
days.
when I say, I mean all the churches, the schools, any kind of like centers that was available, because our people refused to go to the UN camps. They didn't trust.
Why did they refuse to go to the UN camps?
They thought that at that time they said it. Well, it's the same neighbors who betrayed us. Some of them are there. So, and
Right.
we cannot trust that we will be treated fairly. And I mean, so many of these, which they have all the rights. They've been terrified. They've been expelled from their homes. I mean, everything turned against them. Neighbors, you could tell. I mean, all of these reasons, they said, no, no, the safest place for us is Ankawa and the churches, and wherever the churches would direct us, we will go. And also, we have so many families who open their houses also for
Right.
for, for,
Yeah.
for families, whether they know them as a friend, or just they were in need.
How many people, in fact, turned up in Ankara, in your district in Erbil, would you say, at that point?
Our young people made a group of registering all the families, and they've
Hmm.
registered 13,200 families. So
Gosh.
that was a really big number.
And there you were as the main focus of support, and it must have been overwhelming almost for you to have this number of people show up on your doorstep that day.
Luckily, we had a group of bishops who we worked together, uh, like Bishop Amin Nona
Hmm.
of Mosul,
Of
Bishop
Mosul,
Dawood
yes.
Sharaf, Bishop Boutros Moshe. So we were
Hmm.
working together as one group, try to really ease. None of us have been trained to really run humanitarian work. None of us have wished one day to be in that position. None of us, but what we tried together. And I would say part of the our success or a good work was that this working together
Mm.
as
Hmm.
bishops and the priests and the sisters ease and to really make it easier on the people who are already suffering. So yes, it was overwhelming task, but at the same time, we were not alone in that sense.
And of course, you did have some support from friends, not least Aid to the Church in Need, but there were others too. How did those organizations support you in those early days?
Well, the response came immediately in a way that, yes, receiving calls and emails, but receiving you as a delegation coming and seeing checking the situation on the ground. And that was really remarkable. And that was really a big help, support to have all of the Catholic charities on the ground. And I remember there was no hesitation in responding quickly and immediately to the main needs like food and sanitations. But when we ask also for building schools, because education was there, because we were saying, yeah, right from the beginning, the academic year would be approaching soon. Something is going to happen that all of those children would be denied
Hmm.
to go to their schools. Is it possible to build schools? And the first response of that sort came from Aid to the Church in Need of, yes, we could we could build 8 schools immediately, 4 in Hankawa and another 4 in Duhok and Zaho, where also there was
Elsewhere in
families.
Kurdistan, yeah,
Yeah, you see, north of the Nineveh plain, like Batnaya, Tilkiev, Batnaya, Teliskov, Bakofa, Al-Qosh, went to Duhok in
of
Kurdistan because
course,
it
yes, they
was
went to the more
closer to
northerly
them.
part.
While the southern part of Nineveh plain, like Bashika, Bartella, Karamles, and Karakosh, Baghdada,
Mm.
came to Erbil. So responding to, I mean, food, shelter, and sanitation, education as an immediate support, because it was also important for us that our students, our children, will not lose their academic year. And thank God that it happened. That everything was set, and these schools were built in a quick way. And also, I cannot forget the fact that the collaboration that we've had with the Ministry of Education here in Kurdistan and also in the Governorate of Erbil to really accommodate all of those children, that was also remarkable. So yes, the response from Aid to the Church in Need and Knights of Columbus and other, Catholic charities and Christian charities was a big help that made it possible for us to help those who were in need.
Yeah, I will remember. It's a recollection really seared in my memory of going out a few weeks after all this happened in that summer of 2014, and seeing the remarkable progress that you and your community, your young people in particular, working very closely with you, the progress you'd made in terms of food coupons, in terms of provision of tents, all in your shrine, and also the various cabins that were being erected, thinking ahead to the winter and thinking ahead, as you rightly say, to the provision of schooling, recognizing that what you didn't want to see was the disruption of young people's education, insofar as possible. You wanted to prevent that from being disrupted, and it was a remarkable thing to behold. It would, of course, take 2 years before Daesh was essentially kicked out of the Nineveh Plains, in terms of those various towns and villages that it occupied. And the day was long awaited when eventually the communities that you had been providing shelter for, with the support of so many that you've listed, were at last able to begin to think about returning. And of course, that was actually a bittersweet moment, because so many of them returned to find that their places of origin, their hometowns and villages had been so very badly desecrated, damaged, destroyed. Can you just give the listeners a sense of that bittersweet moment? Because it wasn't that great. Wow, we can go back and rebuild. It was a very difficult time, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so many families had this mixture of feelings about this, because these villages were the place where they're born, raised, and they have so many memories. And it's historical villages. It's not just like what we call 100 years old village. No, it goes on in the history. And also, I remember that there was some kind of two attitudes from also church leaders, some of which that they were saying uh, we should really make sure and get some guarantees from the government that these kind of atrocities will not happen, and we should secure this and this and this before really going back to these villages and urging our families to go back. That was one. And the other side was saying, listen, if we don't go now, we will keep these villages empty, and sooner or later, some people would come and occupy these empty houses. So we should go back again and try to build, depending on God providence and the help also that we get from Catholic aid charities like ACN, which led the campaign of rebuilding these villages. So between these two oppositions, I was the one who said, let's encourage the families to go back. And that was one of the reasons. For example, I've cut the help in Ankawa to urge families to go back, because there was a program. I mean, you at ACN led the program in Baghdad, in Karakosh, Baghdad, in Bartella, and other places. Knights of Columbus helped building Karamles. There was like the Hungarian help build, also helping into Luskov. So we've told the people, listen, once you go there, yes, all of these sad and terrifying memories is still there, but at least you could start building and showing that the future is in your hands. And it worked. It worked. I mean, some 9,000 families went back to occupy, to rebuild these villages, with the difficulties that's still there, lack of jobs, also the security of the area was not really clear yet about that. All of these feelings was there. But I personally, even yesterday, we were talking with certain bishops. I said I still believe that going back was the right decision. Waiting for the government to give us guarantees that things would not happen again, or to gain this, probably it will never happen. So yeah, thanks to you and to all the people who helped. And today when we go, we see that the villages is coming back. So many children for the first communion, so many children for the catechism, churches being filled again, churches also being renovated in a way that, because some of these churches were used by ISIS as shooting center or prisons. I mean, all of these desecrations were there, but today it's being rebuilt in a way that also kept some of these sad memories present, that something happened. This is the history, but the reality of hope is stronger.
Yeah, I remember vividly going to see the situation in 2017, and the level of devastation, the desecration, the way in which the militants had targeted church structures, statues, used crosses and statues for shooting practice. It was really it really hits you, just the extent of the hatred and the difficulties that there were faced by so many in terms of trying to rebuild was made worse by the way the houses had been very severely damaged by high explosives. Uh, and indeed, there were some places where homes had been booby trapped. And that was a horrible thing to behold, to listen to the stories of the various families coming back to find a trap waiting for them. Obviously, a lot has happened since 2016, and the rebuilding of schools, churches, homes, which Aid to the Church in Need, Knights of Columbus, and so many others were involved in. And you'd have to see what it was like back in 2016 to appreciate the extent of the progress made. It may well be difficult for those going to visit the regions now to see just how far things have progressed from those dark, dark days. Um, we've got a situation, though, now where, of course, the migration of the Christian community has continued apace. In the time that I've been following the story of the Christian community in Iraq, we've seen a steady and at times speedy migration of the Christian community. And you've been a very clear, if I may say, figure in terms of enunciating the extent of this challenge. Um, what would you like to say about the decline in numbers of the Christian community, and what does that represent by way of a challenge and an opportunity for the future going forward?
John, you follow the news, and you know over the last 50 years that Middle East has been a territory of war and violence and discrimination, an area where sectarian violence, political disputes, all of it together have made a feeling within the Christian community and also others who are, for example, against all of these ideologies, that Middle East is not safe. So we've seen the decline of the number of the Christians in Middle East from 20% to less than 4%. Some people were saying, well, why you terrify people? I'm not terrifying people. This is the fact that we've seen. And it would be a big loss for Middle East to have the Christian away. So these kind of statements, it's not to terrify people, but also to alert that something should be done when it comes. First, stop the violence and the wars. All of these issues are important for us. Yes, we find, for example, I will take Iraq. We find an area here in Kurdistan safe. Historically, also, we had a dialogue of life with thousands of years with the community here. We are flourishing. An area like Ankawa, it's I would say really safe in a way. That's why we ask you and others to help us build schools, a university, a hospital, where we provide jobs, over 830 jobs just within the 5 schools that we have, at a university and a hospital and an NGO. It's a way where the church would help stabilize it, because the young people would ask for jobs today. If we want a settled, secure family, they would tell you, we need a job. We are not here to just receive donations. We need a job that we could really respect our dignity. So yes, we are saying and keep saying, be aware of this migration of the Christians, because this is not good for the diversity that's a richness for Middle East. And at the same time, whenever there is a possibility, whenever there is a secure and safe place where Christian can flourish, please do help, because it makes a big difference. None of the families who immigrate want that voluntarily. They are in some way or another forced to take that decision. Some of the families that I've known, they immigrate 3 times within the last 40, 50 years. They were born in a village, left to another city, forced to leave. I mean, these stories are real stories. So yes, Middle East today is unfortunately within this violent environment that's there, and what's happening in Gaza, and the fear that the war would spread around. All of these feelings are true, and facts also there within the mind of the families, and they cannot forget it was just 10 years ago. It's still there. It's not. We are not reading a history of 200 or 300 years ago. No, no, it was just 10 years ago that all of these atrocities happening. So calling the international community and the Christian around the world to help is also a way of, also when we stable the Christian community, we are also contributing to the peace in Middle East.
Yeah, that has always been your message, and I well remember you coming to London in February of 2015, and you made a statement at Westminster to the effect that people from your community are leaving, but they're leaving with tears in their eyes. And it struck me very powerfully the way in which no one wants to up sticks and leave their home. And when there are reports of people doing that multiple times, how much greater the level of pain and upset that must cause. And I mean, how many Christians would you suggest are remaining in Iraq now? I think before the time of the fall of Saddam, it might have been well over 1 million, perhaps 1.2, perhaps 1.5 even before that point. How many are left, would you say, and where are they mostly to be found?
It's quite difficult to answer because really figures are not, I mean, right there. Less than 250,000 could be, but mainly, I mean, we have around 8,000 families here in Ankawa gathered in this big area in Erbil. So yeah, that's really, that's mainly you could find them here, but you still have a good community around the Nineveh Plain, whether in north or southern part of the Nineveh Plain. People in Baghdad, also small community in Basra, in Kirkuk, in small community in Suleymaniya, in Duhok and Zakho. But I would say the big gathering of the Christian families would be in Ankawa.
That is indeed an important testimony to what you have done, of course, because before 2014, the Christian community, if I'm right, I remember visiting you there at that time, 2008, the Christian community in that region was really quite small. So that's a testimony to what you've done, that community now is, if you like, the major hope for the Christian presence in the region. One of the things that you've touched on earlier, but which deserves a little bit more exploration, is, of course, your work with the Catholic University of Erbil and your other education work. And this is such an important part of your ministry, and Aid to the Church Need has been heavily involved. And one of the most moving, and I've had many moving experiences visiting you in Iraq, was going with the help of John Neal to visit the Catholic University of Erbil and visiting and meeting and interviewing some of your students. What was the inspiration behind the CUE which you founded, and what do you think its objective should be described as?
Well, I must first thank you, ACN, for supporting different pastoral activities that we've had. I mean, we have a yearly support from you towards our Catechism Center and catechism activities, which involves around 2,000 students from age 4 to 2022. We have also your support for the big gathering of the young people at Ankawa Youth Meeting AYM, which last year registered 1,600 young people for 3 days of prayer and gathering and catechism and socializing. That was and it's still really you the biggest support that we get to run these important pastoral and educational activities. My reading to the dialogue of life that we've had with Islam over 1,400 years was how important education is for this dialogue of life, where we would have this mutual respect towards each other. And so many schools were in the region of Middle East, and especially here, Muslim community respect our educational system and health centers, and they come with respect, trust, and decency, and that give us a responsibility in a way. And we cannot just boast and we say thank God for this trust. We have to do something on this. So that's why opening schools to everyone, where we continue this dialogue of life, which is very important for the community. And then when it comes to Catholic education, especially higher education, in the midst of all of this, what we are going to offer a way of evangelization here is have the student breathe Christ, breathe Christianity, and have in them questions about us. For that was for me an important step towards reaching out again to the Muslim community and to the Yazidi community, offer to them a higher education. I must say we are learning how to do university, and a Catholic university. It's not it's not an easy. There is no catalog to that, because we have to know our people, and year by year we are really learning how to reach out. Recently, for example, we have sisters working in the Student Life Center, and they made a big difference, where we have now a choir, where we have a young people going to the south of the country for educational trip. So many activities. Recently, for example, for the month of Ramadan, there was a special greetings prepared by the students to the Muslim community, and some people say, Bishop, why you are doing this? Have you listened or heard or received any message for Easter or for Christmas from the Muslim community? I said, yeah, but how we are going to show our solidarity when we are asking respect from the others? We should first be the one who give that respect. So we should show that respect, and a decent one and a sincere one in that sense. And what it was well received by the Muslim community, not just in Erbil, also because it was played on social media. This is a greeting message from the students of Catholic University in Erbil in Arabic for the month of Ramadan to the Muslim community. So back again, the importance of education, yes, searching for the truth, respecting the richness of the Catholic educational heritage, but at the same time always open to the other who is willing to trust us and send their sons and daughters to the school and to the university, where they would have a respectful environment, for growth together, and at the same time, respect, mutual respect, and a dialogue, a decent dialogue with each other.
Yes, I mean, I certainly recall when you invited us to visit the university, when I spoke to the students, they said this is the one environment where it no longer matters whether you're Christian or whether you're Yazidi or whether you're Muslim. Yes, of course, we each have our faith and that matters to us, but it
Yes,
doesn't matter in the sense of creating a barrier between us.
exactly.
We have so much to share and so much to learn from each other that we should no longer see these differences as barriers. And I felt that that coming from them showed that something of the culture of inclusion, of mutual respect, but retaining identity at the same time was being achieved and being fostered, and it spoke to the essence of the objectives of the CUE, and that's why we at Aid to the Church in Need felt so proud to be involved in it and to be part of this international, because so many other organizations and universities were supporting, are supporting, and will continue to support it. And it is a great tribute to you, if I may say, that you what you have done. Just beginning to draw things to a close, Your Grace. As we look back on such a momentous, tumultuous, you might say, 10 years, no doubt the thoughts, the feelings are many and various in your mind. But what would you suggest are your main hopes and fears for your community going forward? If there were one or two points that you see you would suggest are signal of importance to you going forward, what would they be?
Well, first of all, from the experience that we've had as a church leaders, I would stress the point that working together have really made a big difference, and help the people in need at that time, because the response also was from the international community, from you, from others, was great, because you've seen also when you came and you met all the bishops and priests, you saw that everyone is working towards one goal, that which is most important of all others. So I would definitely would like and would work as well to keep that unity of vision and work, and that's what we are doing also at the Catholic University in Erbil, where I've said it to all bishops and patriarchs, this is your university, this is not my university, this is your university. Please just feel free to be part of it, and whenever you see there is someone in need, just direct. Whenever you see anything that would help, see that. I would also ask my people just to be patient and persevere. I know there is lack of jobs, and sometimes they feel insecure. There is a call for migration. There is a call that of desperation that Middle East will never gain peaceful. All of this, just maintain and persevere, because yeah, in the midst of so many crises around the world, we are forgotten, because people would say, oh, thank God they came back and they are back again to their villages. But there are also many problems, which for some people would say, yeah, it's just a small problem, but it's critical one. Being a minority in this region, it's a critical fact. So urging our beloved families just to persevere, not because they are forgotten, because I know you and other Catholic aid organization, you will never leave us, because at least you could always be this voice for the Christian communities, which we feel not persecution, but the pressure of being minority socially and politically, this is a real. This is a real. So working together as a church leaders, perseverance, and at the same time, uh, thanking you and calling you to continue help in the area where the church is in need, and would be always appreciated. And we pray for you and for all our benefactors that whatever you give, we we multiply it in a good way that would help serving the needs of the people, but most important, keeping the flame of the Christian faith shining in Middle East and in Iraq.
Hmm. Well, you can be absolutely assured, Your Grace, that Aid to the Church in Need, which stood by you in those dark, dark days, which some of us bore witness to and saw for ourselves, will continue. We are committed to in the long term to your vision for the Christian community and its crucial role as a stabilizing, unifying body within the wider matrix of society in Iraq, but also because it matters to us as Christians that there should be a Christian presence in the birthplace, the cradle of Christianity. That's something we can never and should never overlook. It matters to all of us that in the birthplace of Christianity there should be a continued presence of those descendants, if you like, of Christ and his community themselves. Just a final word is an advocacy question, really, for you, Your Grace. What would you suggest should be the priorities that we should call for as a charity and as a wider community to the UK government, to other governments? You've had plenty of engagement. You met Jeremy Hunt, for example, in 2019 when he was Foreign Secretary here in the UK. You had a private meeting with him and his staff in our Foreign and Commonwealth Office. And that was at a time when so much attention was being paid to the plight of Christians and other minorities in the world. But things have changed since then. As you indicated, the level of engagement has declined, and people have taken perhaps the view that situation has returned to some kind of normality, inverted commas. But what do you think the UK government should do to help you? What should their priorities be? What should we as the UK be calling for, particularly on the eve of this really momentous anniversary of the invasion of Mosul by Daesh? What should we call for our governments to do, you think?
Well, we are fully aware of how important the UK government involvement in this area in Middle East and also in Iraq, and their voice has always been respected by the government of Iraq, and here also in Kurdistan. I would love to see that your government would always remind the Iraqi politicians that we not just have an interest, but we do care about the minorities, Christians and Yazidis and the rest. And we love and we wish and we would work together on maintaining that those communities will thrive, not just survive. And I'm not saying keeping an eye, no, but at least reminding always that whenever there is negotiation, whenever there is any kind of delegation coming to Iraq, visiting those minorities or their representative would be in the agenda. I mean, of any important delegation, and at the same time directing some of the aid, UK government aid, towards also some of these projects, which sometimes they would say these procedures would prevent from faith-based community to be dealt with, but no, there are other area where they can help, like clinic, schools, university, area that's not related directly to the faith and church in that sense. So asking also the UK government to direct some of the aid towards these educational and health centers of those minorities that would also help them to create more jobs and to secure more jobs for the community. Um, I would see it's important because UK political voice is heard, and in this sense, I could say, I mean, the ambassadors would play always a big role, and the consulate, general consulate, would play always a big role in visiting these communities, which is really also sending a message to us and to other minorities that yes, we are very much involved in the well-being of those minorities.
Yeah. Yes, because of course, with that help comes jobs. With jobs comes the assurance of the
Yeah,
survival of the community. So it seems, if I may to suggest from what you're saying, that if that help doesn't come, then it places a real pressure with regard to the long-term survival, because without those jobs, as has been made clear again and again, it's one thing to hand out aid in crisis, but for a long-term future, it depends on the securing of meaningful jobs so that people can build a future. And that's a really key message. Your Grace, it has as ever been wonderful to share with you. We, as I said earlier, we have a long friendship going back many years. It's wonderful to rekindle that friendship and that mutual support. You can be assured of the prayers of all of us, and I mean that most sincerely, that it matters hugely to us, the not just, as you rightly say, not just the survival of the Christian community in Iraq, but also its thriving, to use your words. And with that notion in mind, with that thought in mind, that aspiration in mind, thank you for giving up your precious time for us today. It's been great to have you on Break the Silence, our podcast series, and we look forward to continuing our friendship in the months and years to come. Thank you again.
thank you, John. And again, I would say in this moment, it's a big word of thanks to you and to the whole community of ACN. You've been with us in the dark days. We are thank you for that, and we are delighted that we are celebrating together this working together and celebrating the bright days that today we see, and when we see our families back again to their homes and try to really work hard for a thriving presence in Iraq, wherever we are. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Your Grace, and very best wishes for the future.
Thank you.